7,100 species of plants that are edible. 850 of that, that is about 1 out of every 10 plants, is actually used by one or another community in Kenya. So that was my first assignment, taxonomy of these edible foods. And of course, over the years, I've gone into research in individual groups, especially vegetables. And right now I'm working on baobab, which is a very rich source of vitamin C. And I hope I can talk a little bit more about what we are doing in this area. Thanks.
I am even scared of myself. My wife, I live in Kampala, in Uganda. So my wife tells me, remember, you've got 2 years and 1 month. Why does she do that? Because this head has a lot of information that it wants to disseminate through this 1 mouth. So I am aware when I carry that I don't have that platform because I earn my living from talking, and I'm aware that I know much more than many people in here, and I know that I don't have 100 years to live, so I'm in a hurry to share. So I'm going to be very, very brief today and look for sound bites that might make a difference. Firstly, my name is Peter Ogera Mukaya. I wear many hats. I'm an organic farmer. Sylvia, Harun, you know we work together. But I officially also am a non-paid CEO of Organic Consumers Alliance, but I also am part of BIBA, part of PELAM, part of AFSA. And I traveled from Uganda to attend this event. Why? Why? Because food is life. But before food, seed grows in soil. So if you don't have seed and you don't have healthy soil, you cannot claim to have healthy food and a healthy human being or the. That's the first. Is the of food security. And those of you who have machines, please Google. It's a polite way of correcting food security. We, of course, cannot shift from unsafe food to safe food. transition toward safer food. Indigenous are which some of us, being a medical, been practicing medicine for almost 30 years. I don't want to tell you my credentials, Peter Agera Mokaya, Google, you know who I am and what I passed through. I left the clinics because clinics mop the floor. The diabetes, the cancers, the hypertension result from a problem in the space of indigenous foods, in the space of toxic food, which is in this area that brings us together here. Agriculture, where farmers get together and grow. So if the food is toxic, then you really are producing food that cannot achieve food security. Those of us who talk about purpose and minor, we move further and say you should not be forced to eat yellow meat. You should be able to eat the food that you like, that you prefer. We call it food sovereignty. We who are here, most of us, advocate for the shifting to the foods that are culturally sensitive. And those are the foods we call indigenous foods. So in summary, this forum is extremely important from a policy level because it links indigenous foods to not just health issues, but also climate change mitigation, number one. Number two, livelihoods promotion, because you sell this food and we can generate sustainable livelihoods. And until there, we demonstrated that this practice is not a challenge in the country. It also encourages biodiversity of our resources. Right now, Madam Mondi, as you said correctly, we are at a stage where there is an existential threat from the loss of seed varieties. So we need to reverse it. As I conclude, the second last bit, then there is a component of food security and food sovereignty. But I'm really on your case. So I hear where you're coming from, and I know why you're saying that people the pressure from the other side. Dr. Maroi and Dr. Mokaya, you guys said I'm going to find it. Where are these food? How can it be that? It's not practically possible. All you're saying, we should have a policy direction to shift deliberately towards agroecological safer foods, because without food safety, food people, we cannot talk of food security. This is the fact. This is the thing that I want you to know. And then finally, as I sit down, get a drink or not. We wrote this book that Indigenous say was when we discovered that people value their lives. We wrote this book, is available, it's my present to you. You can download it for free on the net. A few copies. I don't know who will check. I think Dr. Harun will have one copy. And then I'll stop. I won't say anything else beyond this. So this is my time is up. Now we wrote another book. This is the final bit.
I thought you were done.
This book we wrote is known as My Phone is African. It's available on the net. You can download it for free. It's our gift to you. Jointly with Akin Maina and Sylvia, but I really you already do that. But this book basically says what my own to say, what all of us are going to say. Let us go back to our roots. Let's eat our food. It's going to help us to deal with the 4 existential crises: diseases, food security, livelihood, biodiversity, and of course climate change. Thank you very much, and I won't open my mouth again.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mokaya.
Dr. Mokaya has spoken.
Is our membership organization that champions for organic practices in Kenya, and our membership is diverse. It's from traders, farmers, input suppliers, extension workers, certification bodies, and everyone else in the organic space, including researchers. After Dr. has spoken, I was like, maybe we just need to keep recording him until the day goes, until the cows come home. And for us, what we are looking at is how do we shift the conversation from these walls to the online space. And through that, in Kwan, we are running a program called OLIA. OLIA is Organic Lifestyle Influencer Approach. So this approach is to discuss, we're using this approach to discuss about organic products and how they, organic products through influencer marketing. So we're using influencers to talk about the need to have organic food, indigenous food on our plates. And we are working in collaboration with WOWSI. WOWSI are our partners in influencer marketing, and also we are supported by people through the backing of Foundation. So influencer marketing, through the influencer marketing, we've been working with our farmers, and our farmers went through 14 training sessions just to learn how to upscale their digital skills. And we saw this fit because how do we turn the local farmer with their local indigenous seeds to get their products on the online space and actually make sales out of it? Because at the end of it all, we all want money in the pocket to sustain our economy, to sustain our families, and also to have the next page on the table. So through this program, we're using digital skills across the board. And it's not limited to young people. We have the youth, such as Solomon, who is seated at the back, and we also have the elderly, like Kipati there. And if you follow them, they can tell you that the online space just revolutionized their businesses. It revolutionized their source of income. So for us, we look at this as, in using farmers as influencers, it will help champion our culture, our indigenous culture. It also helps in promoting our health. By using patent-free seeds and indigenous seeds, we are promoting what is good for our bodies. It's not toxic, it doesn't have synthetic fertilizers, and more so, it's good. I would want to speak more, but maybe
introducing ourselves. In my name. Yeah, power. I'm drinking gooseberry juice. Good for your immunity. My arthritis started trying to act up again. Ninakunywa gooseberry. Nazi, nyatongolo, chinsobosobo, chimbunwe, surubali, buni, chelolo, ngava. Have I touched you? Do you now know what I'm talking about? Practice what you preach. It's all about what these men, and these are heavyweights, by the way. That's why the girls are like, courtesy of none other than Patrick Mahon. Guess what? If you now go to Naivas, you go to Food Plus, you're going to see fresh gooseberries. They're in other places, zucchini. But I want you to look for this one called Gooseberry Delight. Because even all those other gooseberries is because of the work I and my scientists have done. Yeah? People thought I was crazy talking about mapera. Mapera ni nini? Eh? A guava a day will keep your prostate healthy. Eh? Nakakobit kako hapo tena katachapwa. That's why they were saying, no, Africans are going to die. Shit, we didn't die. Did we? Eh? We were eating guavas, loquats, all these weird fruits we were eating. The answer just come out once a year. Nobody even knew that food was our medicine. So where they thought Africans were going to be terminated, as we looked at COVID and winked at it, a few, God rest their souls in peace, went and joined their maker. But where Africa was supposed to be devastated, it wasn't, because of this. And that's why we're now saying, when you go to the stores and you get gooseberry jam, gooseberry wine, the wine is coming out. The Cavosia, we're going to have some food thing in Calro. When you come there, we'll make sure you leave drunk after having drunk some guava wine from University of Nairobi, Professor Jena Mbuko, gooseberry wine from a Gooseberry Delight, Viola Maina, and then definitely there will be some changa type, the concoction of both of those made by Calro. As we have to make sure you're high. But when you're getting high, you're also getting medicinal properties coming into your body. And then the other one is not just fruits and all of that. Bambara nuts. You go to our stand now, they were missing yesterday. Ngugi, Grace, Bambara nuts are there. The so-called monkey nuts, Jugumawe, they're there. Again, me, I'm in the gutter. These Bambara nuts, they're very good for men also and for their prostrates. Go and look at them. And then they also taste good. They're better than beans when you're making githeri, you know. And very seldom will they be hit by these pests. But when they discover they're there, they finish them. So they're very, very healthy for you. And things like the one crop that I love that we're promoting so much is finger millet. Finger millet, nothing will eat it. You can keep it 10, 15 years. Number one, it will germinate. Number two, no insects eat it. That means no pesticides have been used to preserve. Therefore, when you're talking about food, that one is totally safe, finger millet. And you know the Luyas, this year there's nothing. But next year, they'll be making a lot of busa out of finger millet. So you can even see our African traditions have done. Look at Kiara is moving. Kiara, where? Sit down. I'm a woman. I speak 7 times the words. What are you coming? I know, me, I'm like him. You're not going to come back to me. But if the time is cut short, I have spoken. So I'm just saying, Calro now, Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization, we are now conserving our foods. I know if I say avocado, the so-called green gold, it won't make you think about it. But imagine, we are now cutting our local accessions and grafting them with a variety called Hass. Therefore, we're losing our biodiversity. So you know what we've done for the past 3 months? We've gone all over Kenya in the avocado growing areas, and we have collected and geo-referenced the trees. We're planting them now in Thika, and there's another group now going towards the coastal region. We want to conserve that avocado, where Kenya is number 1 in Africa and number 3 in the world in production. We're trying to conserve our biodiversity. So it's so important that these foods that are indigenous, to make sure they're as diverse as possible. Gooseberries, we have 3,000 of the local accessions. 14 of them are about to become varieties. Can you imagine? Yeah, we have to have varieties and whatever. And one of the varieties is called Tumbo. It's named after my older brother. Yeah, I named them based on whatever, people who I know. And then the other one is my boss. You know, you have to suck up to your boss a bit. So you'll one day see when we're launching them, the one I call the boss, so that you guys can now get these names and you continue moving with them. But move with us. Come to this function every year. Every year you learn something new. This year we were caught not ready. But next year, last year in Calro we showed gooseberry. Next year, come and see what we're going to show you so that you can continue to eat them. Because when you eat it, then we're conserving, never ever to lose. So me, I'm done. I'm a woman. I speak 7 times the number of words as a man. These two spoke. So
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Salome Owonda. I'm the Executive Director at Africa Center for Sustainable and Inclusive Development. We work with marginalized communities on disadvantaged transformation, economic empowerment, and climate. Under climate, we work on food systems, where we have a project on sustainable and inclusive food systems agents. We are working with women and youth. And we are focusing on them not just being vulnerable, but being agents of change. And that is why I'm so excited to see the women we have today here and the youth we have. And we know that you're not just vulnerable, but you are agents of change. You move seeds, and you are the ones who are in charge of our kitchens, you're in charge of the food that we eat, and we have to work closely with you to really conserve and preserve our culture and indigenous and traditional food that we need and that we eat. And on that note, we're talking about culture, we're talking about food. And why are we doing so? It's because of the importance that, or the important role that culture plays in our food. We know that we value and take seriously whatever our culture says we need to take seriously. And that is why we need to look at the nexus between our food and our culture. What is our culture saying about certain foods? What is our culture saying about the seeds? And why are we not following these cultures today? We know that in the past we would have pregnant or lactating mothers using specific seeds that are full of zinc in their porridge. They would go for specific leaves, they would go for bark of trees. But we're no longer doing that. Where is the problem? And what can we do to change this? And we can't say it's the modernization, because we know there are things that we used to do and still do. For example, we talk about witchcraft. It's still there the way it used to be. So why is our seed, why is our food where the problem is? Why is it that modernization is impacting our food and not other things? It could be because of the systematic ways of that have been used to disrupt our food, and that is why we are talking today. And we have festivals, and one of them we have the Seed and Food Festival or fair that we have today. It's a way of us continuing the conversation and talking about our indigenous traditional food, our indigenous traditional beliefs, and what we need to pick. We talk about culture, and sometimes we think of retrogressive, but we have progressive culture that we can always pick and work with. And I was very excited with what Silva said about the following up with the mother-in-law on the traditional indigenous food. I'm trying to do that because there's a food that we eat in our village. It's called Nukananga. But in my entire extended family, there's only one woman who knows how to make it. And she's over 100 years old. So we need to get into these spaces, the younger people. We need to really learn from these people before we lose them and lose our traditions. Thank you.
Let's appreciate our panelists again. And now we have talked from the podium. It's time that we get an opportunity from the participants to ask questions, clarifications. And I would suggest that we first get 2 questions per row. Of course, this row is big, to be considered as two rows. Questions, please make your comment as succinct or as short as possible. and also directed to a panelist, directly to a panelist, so that the panelists will have an opportunity to respond. I see one there. So that row gets one question. Here has questions, so they will take one. And from there, we have Nancy, Kim, and just between the two. Okay, two of you. Yeah. So here we have anyone with a question this side? Good. Let's have the first question from that corner. And please direct it to a specific panelist.
Thank you. My name is Christopher. I represent GIZ here and we implement a project on soil protection and rehabilitation. Dr. Mukaya, you have talked about something that has touched so many hearts. From yesterday, I've been here, and I've not heard anybody talking about soil health passionately. I work in a project that protects soil, and some of the findings I found out is that almost 90% of our soils are in ICU. You know what happens in ICU? You have got supportive machines for you to breathe. So I want to say that before we talk about anything, we talk about conserving biodiversity. Let our biodiversity start by conserving the soils. If we don't do that, whatever we do will not be able to achieve results. I want to finish by saying that there are, even our soils that we are working with have become exotic. I used to think that exoticism is only importing, but we can also change our indigenous items into exotic. That's the reason why if you don't use DAP, you don't use CA, you don't get anything. So let's think of how we can use locally available materials so that we can take care of our soils. We have seen a situation where we get hungry all the time. We harvest, and after 2 months, we go back to the markets. When you see a crop behaving funnily, kindly communicate with nature. Why is this crop behaving like this? Scientists have talked about issues of striga with maize as I finish. But I came to realize that striga only thrives in soils that are very poor. So when you improve soil fertility by use of composting and other methods, then you have it. Finally, let us have transition from the adults to the children. When I look at this population, most of guys are between 25 and above, but most adults are not giving a chance to the youths to actually practice agriculture. Youths are known to people who are doing marketing simply because we cannot be able to provide land for them. So let's think differently and have a transition from where we are to the coming generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. There was a question from Nancy.
Okay, thank you so much. Today is the first day I'm attending to the seed fair, and last year I only saw people dancing and I was away and I was not able to see it. But I think today when I see you guys speaking, I see a lot of passion. And yesterday we were in the Global Landscapes Forum, which is also all about agroecology. So there are different forums happening around agroecology and indigenous food systems. And what I kept telling people is that we as the farmers, it's gonna be a very big movement. We're creating a movement of passion. If you are practicing, if you are using indigenous food, and as we have said, we are not going to call it indigenous, it is African food, isn't it? Because when we call it indigenous, people will think it is local, the young people will not want to actually associate with it. I feel bad calling mrenda indigenous when it is on my plate, it is in my sufuria. You know, it's very funny, and it can even sit in the fridge. So an indigenous thing might not even sit in the fridge. So let us continue with pushing for these systems, the food system transformation that we are talking about, the organic food, the African food that we are talking about, and let us not feel shy about it. So I am very happy with those on the stage. I see a lot of passion. Those of us in the plenary, let us keep pushing, let's keep speaking, and I'm sure in the next 5 years, policies will be made just to favor us, because hawatakuwa na cha kufanya. It will all be about agroecological food transformations, and they'll just have to set up policies to support us. So thank you so much. Let's continue doing the impossible. Asante sana. It was not a question, it was a comment.
Thank you. The gentleman behind.
Habari zenu. Mwaseo. No, hamujambo. My name's Patrick Kepati. I am a preacher and I'm a farmer, an organic farmer. I preach in prisons. If you see me in your area preaching in prisons, just know I'm a farmer and a preacher. I'm also a pharmacist. So when we talk about safety, that's the thing that I wanted to ask my friend. When do you talk of safety when you can kill a living thing, and you want a human being to swallow that and say it is safe? I want to support him, Dr. from Uganda. It is not safe. You go organic, it is not safe. Go organic, it is safe. If you go to our forest, you'll find everything growing. There are plants that are repelling insects and pests to protect one plant. And there's something else that is pulling an insect or a pest to protect another one. Why don't we do away with the chemicals? Why don't we go organic, go natural? We're going to be safe. I'll be 70 on 24th November, and I've been on organic. I take honey, I take those things that people don't like, and I'm happy. I think I'm going to finish up the gooseberry juice there, because you need to remain healthy and strong. Praise the Lord. Now, my question is, are we going to change? Or are we going to wait for laws from people who want to make money from your death? People want to promote cancer, high blood pressure, things that were never in our traditions, in our people. Are we going to change?
I'm glad today to tell you, to inform you people that us from Kajiado, I think people used to know us of meat eating only. But for now, it is because of the various diseases. For example, when somebody is having high blood pressure, you are advised by the doctor that you keep off completely from eating meat. And so we have embraced the organic farming of taking vegetables because of our health. So we thank the CGA. The CGA is in Kajiado, and they've really empowered us. And empowerment, we thank the CGA because they have empowered us as women and youth. And we are really taking it seriously. Though we have the major problem, the shortage of water in Kajiado County, but we thank God because we've been having several donors who have been able to, with the county government of Kajiado, in digging the more boreholes. So we are really transforming from cattle farming because of the drought. I think you understand the drought. The last season, we have been experiencing a lot of droughts in Kajiado, whereby all our animals died. So we are now embracing on farming. And I'm glad today to be here with my fellow colleagues. We are ready to be transformed.
Yes, my name is Clement, and I've been looking for Calro to quarrel them a bit. And it is good today we have Dr. Lusike here. Daktari, we have the managu, and there is what we call in Luo the mito. And traditionally they have a bitter taste, which is very good for adults and for those who are sick. Even the sick people can take it. You know, when you're sick, the appetite becomes a problem. But sick people can really do very well with such bitter vegetables. But the ones, the seeds that you bring to us are flat in taste. And here you are telling us, is it indigenous when you have already tampered with the taste, with the original taste? You go to Kisii and you eat the managu there. And the managu that you give us to plant, the seeds that you have developed, why are you doing that and then you are still... Anyway. So Daktari, maximum respects anyway. Now number two, there is what we call in Luo Otho. I don't know if there is anyone here who can translate. There is a plant, an indigenous tree that bears succulent seeds. We call it Otho. And it is so much beloved by the squirrels love it a lot. I don't know if you can do a research on this and tell us the benefits, and if at all we need still to continue eating Otho. We used to eat it anywhere we were young people. And what you are drinking there you call gooseberry, we call it nyatongulo. You may not know. Thank you.
Asanteni sana. Natoka kwenye shirika linaitwa Forward Kenya, mkoa wa Magharibi. Na tuna wamama ambao wako kwenye hilo kongamano la vyama ambalo linaitwa Nakilisha Giles Women Association. Natoka huko Busia. Ninashukuru sana kwa ninyi wanasayansi ambao wanajaribu sana kutuhamasisha ili kwamba tukaweze kuzoea kula vyakula vyetu vya kitamaduni na hasa vya Kiafrika. Heko kwenyu, nashukuru kwa sababu sijawa na nyinyi. Hii ni nafasi yangu ya kwanza kuweza kuwa katika hili kongamano. Na ninazungumza Kiswahili kwa sababu kuna wengi wetu hapa wachache, hasa akina mama ambao tumetembea na wao, ambao hawaelewi sana ama hawangamui maneno ya lugha ya Kiingereza. Kwa hivyo nimezungumza kwa niaba yao. Nataka kuuliza tu swali. Sylvia, nimefurahia sana hicho kikapu chako ambacho kinafanya kazi nzuri, na nimetaka tu kuuliza ni vipi ambavyo tunaweza kushirikiana nanyi, kwa sababu kule nyumbani tuna wamama wengi sana. Tuko na kijiji ambacho kinapanda mihogo, na wakati mwingi huwa tunapata changamoto tunapoweza kuweka hizo mihogo pamoja. Tukileta kule Nyamakima, wakati mwingine tunachelewesha sana kulipwa kwa sababu soko ni adimu. Kwa hivyo ningelipenda kama kunaweza kuwa na uwezekano tuweze kupata mbinu za kushirikiana nanyi vile tunavyoweza kupata sokoni. Na pia hao akina mama wale pia, kwa sababu wengi wao wana changamoto ya kijinsia, wengine pengine ni wamama ambao wanaweza kutunza familia zao peke yao kama wamama, wamekuja pamoja na wanapanda mboga za Kiafrika. Kwa hivyo unapata kwamba mboga kama mrere, mboga kama saka, mboga kama hanyula, mboga kama hasangariuva, kuna hata zingine ambazo tunapanda ili msimu wa kiangaza ukifika watoto wana chakula wakitoka kule kwenye shule. Kwa hivyo ningeliomba kama tunaweza kuwa na ushirikiano mzuri ili tukawashike hawa kina mama mkono. Heko kwa wanabiba, sisi ni wanachama wao, na najua baada ya hapa tutakuwa na watu wengi wa kushirikiana na wao. Jambo la pili, tumekuja kwenye hili kongamano, lakini ningelipenda sana haya ambao tunazungumzia, wala ambao tuna vibanda kule nje na tunaonyesha vile ambavyo tunafanya. Hii sima ya ugali ambao tunasema mhogo ukichanganya na mawele unakupatia ugali mzuri sana ambao kwa madini unakupatia nini? Afya njema. Tuupike huo ugali ili wengi wenyu hata ambao hamjawahi kuula mweze kujaribu. Mnapoambia watoto kule nyumbani hii ni sima, mtoto asiseme ni tope, sababu watoto wetu husema kwamba ni tope. Wakuja kule nyumbani baada ya likizo, mama anasema tumepika hii sima ya Kiafrika, hebu mle. Watoto wanasema sisi hatujawahi kuona usima kama hii. Kwa hivyo ni vipi ambavyo tutahamasisha watoto wetu, kwa sababu najua watoto ni lazima wafundishwe. Ni kama lugha tu, umetoka Western umeenda kuolewa kule Tarakanithi, na unapomaliza kama miezi 3-4 unaanza kuongea Kikitaraka kwa sababu unaiga, unasikia yale mazungumzo vile watu wanavyozungumza. Kwa hivyo ningelipenda pia tuwe na mikakati. Daktari unavyosema Lusweti kwamba pia nanyi mnafanya nini? Mnashika mkono. Kiingereza tunasema mentoring. Ni vipi ambavyo tutaweza kuanza hii safari ya kuhamasisha watoto wetu kama bado ni wachanga, ili wakaweze kuwa na mwigo wa kula vyakula vyetu vya kitamaduni. Kwa hivyo nawashukuru sana kwa nafasi hii, na Maulana Rabuka mterehemezi wa neema kubwa kubwa na ndogo ndogo, akitupatia nafasi tena tutakutana hapa mwaka ujao inshallah.
The last now, please, because of time, allow it to be the last question. We are doing badly on time.
Hamjambo. Tumeambiwa kuna wenzetu ambao hawaelewi Kizungu mahali hapa, ndiposa pia mimi nitafuata mkondo huo. Swali langu ni jambo ambalo limetokea hivi karibuni. Tumeona koti ikifanya nini? Iki uphold, yani ikisuspend kesi ya GMO. Na hapa tuko hapa kupigia upato ama tunahamasisha jamii kuhusu mambo mbegu za asili na mimea za asili. GMO itakapokuja katika nchi yetu, tunajua ya kwamba ita influence, ama saa zile unaona saa zile wakipanda mahindi ya GMO lazima saa zile ya flowering ama nini vile zile mbegu zitachanganyika. Je, tutakuwa na mbegu zetu za asili tena? Na sisi tunapoketi mahali hapa sote kwa siku ya leo, tutaambia serikali yetu nini kuhusu mbegu zetu za asili? Kwa sababu mimi nimelelewa katika asili, na vyakula vyote ambavyo tunaona watu wakisema vile, mimi watoto wangu nimewafundisha kuanzia mwanzo, wanajua kula chakula cha asili, wanajua mpaka wenyewe kujitengezea. So wazazi, ndugu zetu, watoto wetu, tunapotoka hapa tunaenda kuambizana nini kuhusu mambo ya GMO? Na tunavyojua tulipatiwa mpaka evidence, ushahidi madhara ambayo mambo ya vyakula vingine vya GMO vinafanya nini, vinatuletea. Tunajua kuna mutation, tunafikiri itaenda hivi na mutation iende tofauti na vile tulivyokuwa tunatarajia. Tafadhali tunaomba mnapokaa katika board, madaktari, tunajua mnazingatia na huwa mnakumbana na mambo ya policy making na pia kupeana wasia kwa serikali yetu. Asanteni.
Asanteni sana kwa hayo maswali na pia maoni, na ningependa sasa tuwapatie our panelist ndio waweze kujibu. Hilo swali la mwisho ningemuomba Madam Ann aweze kuijibu hiyo ya GMO. Lakini kuna swali lilikuwa limelengwa kwa ingine lilikuwa limelengwa kwa daktari, na na kuleta kukua na boga ambazo hilo la GMOs, alafu sababu
Asante. Sana. Mambo ya, which is the organic mark for the market.
Asante, Madam Sylvia. Daktari, karibu.
Unataka usugae ya day 1, day 2, day 3 or day 4. Are we talking? Usuga wanakuuliza ukienda kwa mkahawa hapa Nairobi, unakuta unataka ya day 2, day 3, mpaka nikauza hii ndio wanapika hiyo usuga wanaweka maziwa. So day 1 only one day of day 2. By the time you get to day 4, it's the most deep of the usuga. Ni wajalo wanakula hata wabukusu. Tunakula hiyo na masaka. Na tunaweka hiyo maziwa, so hapa ndio tunakula. My dad cannot eat na masaka. Alikula hiyo mboga every day growing up. My grandmother had osuga or na masaka with different amount of milk, and then when it's time to go to eat. So up to today my dad can eat. So those ones are there, and that's why we have our gene bank. Dr. Namongo here today. We are keeping all these characteristics of plastic in mind. All these different types of selenium. Because when you look at them, there are 6 big clusters, different types, based on the colors of the food My mentor. Have I done well? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Daktari, for answering that. And I think she has also answered the question of Mito and Otho, which was asked earlier.
Just to be quite specific, Otho is what we call the desert.
Thank you.
And just an addition to my colleague. Hii managu unaita agriculture. East Africa is not origin. Lakini chanzo chake ni Cameroon. Mount Cameroon. Lakini over the years it has spread everywhere. As your rightly put it, it's not as bitter as others. But that bitterness is an attribute we like for with ugali. So, thanks.
Asante. Give it to Hash to talk about indigenous seeds.
I know that the professor has talked, and I know it's now a farmer talk.
Yeah, it might not be okay if a farmer goes without talking in this forum. So maybe I would like to maybe address two things. First of all, the indigenous, the Osuga and the Miro, that is Glotalaria and black nightshade. We have the local, the indigenous one, the bitter one that you are saying. We are based in Kisumu, Nyakach. So we also did the characterizations of these seeds by Mr. Namongo, Dr. Namongo from Calra. And that is the black nightshade and all these vegetables, they have more than, some of them has more than 6 varieties, different varieties. So we store them in our seed bank. The challenge is, like the managu, we have 8 different varieties of managu. We also have the local, the indigenous one, and the one that they have graded, you know. And we've also visited the gene banks, even from Ethiopia. Yeah, so we know how they taste and what the farmer likes and what the market is, how the market is going. Another thing that I wanted to mention here and stress is that the policy of Kenya, the laws, doesn't allow seed bankers their seeds, and the seeds are open source seed. So I want to express this to the policymakers, and this should be done by collaboration, non-governmental and farmers, the relevant people that are supposed to let us come together and see on how the policymakers can help the seed bankers to register their seeds and sell their seeds, so that local seeds can also be known by our people, and also the benefits. They are medicinal, like the Clotalaria, the bitter one. If you have a problem of stomach ache, use the Clotalaria. It is called Miro. And we also have other varieties. Because of time, I know it's late, and let me just stop there because we will engage more. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello. Yeah, thank you very much. I want to ask Anne to respond for, the question that was asked about GMOs in a very summarized way so that we summarize and finish this session.
Asante sana. There was the question that was asked about GMOs. We know that our farmers that we've been working with, when we started the campaign against GMOs, they struggled with access to seed because wakulima unasema tusipande GMO na already tuko dependent na market, tunanunua hybrids kila wakati. Sasa tutatoa wapi mbegu yetu ya asili? Na ndio maana tukaanza mikakati ya kuweka hii seed fair ndio wakulima warudishe zile mbegu zao za kiasili. Kama ukitembea kule kwenye exhibition stands, utaona mahindi aina nyingi. Mkulima akiwa na mbegu yake, hata wakimbilia kununua mbegu kwenye duka kwa sababu kwenda kila wakati kununua kwenye duka ni a form ya kuwa slave. Na ukiendelea kununua kwenye duka utapoteza ile yako ya kiasili. Na ndio maana tumeanza seed fair from last year. Apart from at the national level, wakulima wengi wanafanya seed fairs na seed saving mashinani kwenye nyumba zao, kwenye pia vikundi vyao, ili tuweze kurudisha zile mbegu zetu za asili na kuavoid a situation tunakuwa tumefungwa, tuna depend na kununua kila wakati. Na mbegu iko na bei kali. Kwanza ukiangalia vitu kama horticulture kama nyanya, bei ya hiyo mbegu iko juu sana, lakini wakulima tunataka tuwe self sufficient na tupate hizo mbegu zetu. Ninakuwa nikiangalia message hapa, kulikuwa na kesi ile sisi tumewasilisha kule kwenye High Court ya GMOs, na kesi yetu inasema GMOs hazijaruhusishwa mpaka a decision is made. Lakini wenzetu wale wa Law Society of Kenya walikuwa wameenda kule Environmental Court na Environmental Court imekataa, lakini bado GMOs ziko a stay order, ziko banned until serikali ifanye decision ya court case ile tulipeleka kule kotini. Asanteni sana.
Asante sana Madam Anne kwa hiyo clarification. Tumekuja mwisho wa hii session na ningeomba tuwashukuru the panelists kwa kufanya kazi mzuri. Tuwapigie makofi. Pia tujipigie sisi wote wadau kwa kuwa participants wema. Asanteni na Mungu awabariki. Back to you, MC.
I think we can do better than that. Let us appreciate Mr. Eustace Kiarie na timu yake wamefanya kazi mzuri sana. Now we want to take a short break. And the short break is not going out or doing something. We want to just have an interlude of some music from Kayamba Roots. Let us give them one number only as we prepare for Dr. Mainge to come and do moderation for session 5. Because according to your program, you can see that we're supposed to be going for some tea break, but we shall not do that right now because we are running late. Out of schedule. Kayamba Roots, please.
Yeah.
Simame kidogo, simama kidogo. Asante sana, asante sana. Wapi makofi? Tuwapatie makofi tafadhali. Asante. Now I want to call upon Dr. Daniel Mainge. Dr. Daniel Mainge, so that he can moderate the section ambayo inakuja. Tengeneza hii microphone tafadhali.
Good morning. For another few minutes anyway. I know I'm sitting between you and lunch and the panel that is coming, so we are going to try and go as quickly as possible. In the next session, we are talking about governance, data governance, and seed. Mnakumbuka the word coin, where you had to stare in the orb and give the data about your eyes, because data is the next oil. And the way it's being used, even in agriculture, is going to be very big. So we need to be able to figure and think through beyond what is here now, and to begin to see how data, right? Data and seed, how they connect. So that is what we are going to be doing in the next, I hope less than an hour. We don't want to stay near your lunch. And so how does data and seed connect? And right now, let's look at data and see how many people manage to give their data from their eyes. Because when at midnight you're looking at the phone in your bed, somebody is seeing you. Did you give that permission willingly? Do they know what you're doing, what you eat, when you sleep, when you wake up? How about when it comes to agriculture? The laws, the regulations, and the policies that we are setting up on the seed is now beginning to talk about digitalization and datafication of agriculture. And so let's put our heads together as we welcome two of my good friends to be on here, and I hope it's going to go very quickly. One on data and the other one on seed governance. We were waiting for Ombalo, but he sent his presentation, and we'll see how it goes. So let me have, and put your hands together for Matt Canfield from University of Leiden. He's a professor there. And Madame Anne Maina. Let's clap for them. So we'll try, and I hope you're ready. Yes, you're ready. Oh, good.
Okay.
Good.
All right, good morning. So thank you so much for having me, and today I'm going to just offer a brief introduction to what this means, digitalization and datafication of our food systems. So can I have the next slide? Okay, I just want to tell you a little bit about me. So I am a researcher, and I have focused really on the relationship between law, culture, and food, and specifically on food sovereignty. And most of my work has been working with the US food sovereignty movements and the African food sovereignty movements on seed sovereignty and biotechnology. And right now I've been starting to work with BIBA, and we're looking at how so that we can engage and talk about data governance and digitalization. So the next slide. So this is a brief overview. So next. Okay, so right now we are being told that there is a digital revolution in agriculture. And look at this graphic that's created by the World Bank. First we have Neolithic agriculture, then there's the British scientific revolution, then there's the Green Revolution, and now we have this data revolution. And this is the way it's being understood, that it's also called agriculture 4.0, it's called precision agriculture, and all of this has really three goals. One of them is to collect data on a massive scale on our relationships to each other, on our relationships to land, and our knowledge of the land. And the second is to use that information to create decision-making support. And that can be for governments, could be for farmers, it could be civil society. And oftentimes this is artificial intelligence and machine learning to create these sort of analytics that can shape the decisions that we're making. Now, there's a lot of consensus that these are disruptive technologies, and that these disruptive technologies are really going to shape who has control over our food systems and who is making these decisions. So the next slide. So often we hear that these food systems are going to drive innovation, that they'll enable food sustainability, that they'll promote food security, that there are market efficiency, and they'll help us collect all of this data that we know nothing about. And these narratives are produced by, next slide, by a lot of different international organizations. And this was from an analysis I did with a colleague where we see the World Bank, the Food and Agriculture Organization, the World Economic Forum, all of these very powerful international organizations telling us these narratives. But it's not only coming from international organizations. Next slide, please. This is something that the Kenyan government has really embraced. Digitalization has been part of the agricultural growth strategy, and there have been many different kinds of use cases that the government has developed digitalization. And in fact, Kenya is at the forefront of digitalizing agriculture in the world, and that is why it's so important that we're talking about today. Kenya and India are really at the forefront of this. And so engaging with this, understanding what are its effects, that's something that we're just at the beginning of doing. So next slide, please. So one of the things that's most important is that what fuels these technologies. We've heard this idea, data is the new oil. It's the fuel of these new technologies. And this was a graphic that was created by the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa. And the idea of data requires that we transform all of this stuff in society, our knowledge, information about the land, into data, which is called datafication. And this datafication is a process in which social action, so our knowledge, our relationships, are transformed into quantified data that can be read by machines. And what is being datafied? Well, it is their land, information about land records are something that we've seen being datafied. We see farmer information, so there's a huge drive across the country to register farmers and get their digital information, which is essential for these technologies, what they're growing, where they're growing it, what kind of land, what plants, all of these things. And finally, information about the seeds. And this is what this idea that, we just need more data, is a lot like what we've been told with this idea that we just need to produce more, but it's not necessarily producing what, for whom, what are we actually producing here, and what are the ends of it? So the next slide. And so oftentimes we hear that the big inequalities in digitalization is who has access to technology, right? We often call this the digital divide. That we have internet for some and less internet, for example, in rural areas, which is very important. But it's also, we see inequality in questions about who has the access to actually decide what we're producing data on. Who has access to that data? Where is it being amassed? Where is it being controlled? And sometimes, this is a picture that, for example, was in The Elephant on data colonialism, but often we see a lot of this data is being collected and taken out of the country, for example, by large technology companies, big input producers, big seed companies who want this data in order to sell their products and create markets. So the next slide, please. So what does this have to do with seed? Next slide. Well, there's two ways. The first way is that a lot of this data is going into creating new technologies that are creating digital advisory services. And these digital advisory services are collecting data on small-scale farmers, and they're doing that to encourage often particular farming practices. This is sometimes called nudging, buying particular inputs, particular products. And these in Kenya you've probably heard of, like DigiFarm, which is run by Safaricom. Climate Edge is another one. Next slide. In fact, in all of the digital applications that we're seeing, most of them are going into this advisory services. And the idea is that farmers need access to information, which is true. Farmers can use access to information about weather, for example. But a lot of this is also being led by the private sector, and particularly the data that's being collected is the most valuable to these major big corporations, who are the ones who are actually funding this, because most farmers and most people in the world don't want to buy these apps. So the way that they actually are they can be successful and profitable is by selling to these big corporations. The next slide, please. And this is something that the government, the Ministry of Agriculture, has been also involved in trying to encourage. And so there's a huge push to create this e-incentive program to register farmers, and a lot of the question of where is this data going, who is it being used by, and to what end is something that is still we're still learning about, we're still thinking about. But nonetheless, we see increasingly that both government and the private sector are working to encourage this datafication of agriculture and the creation of these digital technologies. Next slide. So the civil society organizations and researchers have raised a lot of concerns that these technologies come with major risks. They come with the risk that they can lock farmers into particular technologies. We become dependent on them. Think about Facebook or Instagram or any of these, where we don't know how these companies are using our data, and it's very hard to shift away from them. There's also violations of privacy and the rights of the data producers, that is us. We sometimes don't know where our data is going, what our rights to it are. And when we click something saying, I accept, have we read all the terms and conditions? Can we even understand them? They also can be, like I said, nudging farmers, encouraging particular kinds of behaviors, which oftentimes may not be conducive with agroecology or food sovereignty. They can also lead to de-skilling when we become dependent on them and lose our knowledge about indigenous seeds, local foods, and instead are being fed this information that is advantageous to the technology producers. And the other thing is that civil society, farmers' organizations, often have a lot less capacity to actually be involved in processing, managing these data, and developing digital technologies. So there are major inequalities. And finally, these can lead to the expansion of corporate control over agriculture. They can lead also to huge environmental impacts, because although it sounds like data is not like something that's environmentally intensive, it uses tons of water and electricity every time we put a query into our search boxes. Next slide. The second way that we see this playing out in seeds is through something called digital sequence information, which is very complicated sounding. But basically, there's a huge new technologies that are being able to analyze the DNA of seeds. And a lot of that DNA that is being analyzed through new genomic technologies, the idea, and particularly these, again, large seed companies, want to take all of that information and create new kinds of biotechnology, new generations of genetically modified organisms. And so one of the big questions is, this is just genetic information. Companies say it's just information. It's not seeds that we're taking from a particular place. We don't actually owe anything to the communities who have developed these indigenous seeds from which we're taking this information. So again, next slide. There's huge concerns. There's concerns about the biosafety of the products that they're creating through this digitalization of seeds. There's concerns that it will impact biodiversity and local knowledge. And there's concerns that all of these ideas of access and benefit sharing, that is, when companies or different kinds of private sector associations take information from local seeds, that they're not actually sharing the benefits with those communities who have developed them. Next slide. So in terms of what do we already know, I took this picture yesterday, digital technologies can bring a lot of benefits to communities when they are used in ways that support food sovereignty and agroecology. And the question for us is, how can we learn more about them and engage in governance to support those kinds of pathways to food sovereignty and agroecology? Next slide. So one of the things that's really important is that Kenya is at the forefront of actually thinking about these questions. And there's a huge data governance policy that was developed in 2019 by the legislature, and the Ministry of Agriculture was one of the first ones to say, we need to develop data governance for farmers to ensure that our farmers are not being taken advantage of. Now, this is something that is been very recent. It's only been in the last year that this has been developed, and it emphasizes things like informed consent before data is taken. It says that we need agricultural codes of conduct that have to be developed. And it says that actually we should be developing participatory models where farmers' organizations and civil society can engage in this. But one of the challenges is that very few of us actually understand how these technologies work. And so what is it, are farmers consenting? Do they know what they're consenting to, even if it is informed consent? What does that look like? What should these codes of conduct look like? And how can we participate to ensure that data is not being collected and used in ways that is contrary to food sovereignty and agroecology? So I'll go to the next slide. There's also a lot of pressures from global organizations that are putting pressure to change those policies. For example, right now the government is negotiating with the US government the Kenya Strategic Trade and Investment Partnership. And actually, the standards that the government has already set for data, the US government wants it to lower them even below the standards of the US government's own approach to data. And so a lot of these pressures are coming from a lot of international bodies to say, oh, let's not do strong data governance, let's not actually protect farmers, let's ensure that these corporations have access to all of their data. And so I can talk through, I'm gonna skip this because I can answer some of the questions in this, but this is a huge issue. So the next slide. So one of the things that is an important resource is that the Civil Society and Indigenous Peoples mechanism of the Committee on World Food Security, and I was on the facilitation team of this process, developed a vision statement to say, we need to create data governance that supports food sovereignty. Because as food sovereignty leaders, you already have so much experience fighting to recognize, respect, and protect local, peasant, and indigenous knowledge systems. And agroecology already offers us lots of models for how to do information collection and analysis in fair and equitable ways. And so they elaborated a lot of key values like individual privacy, community sovereignty, and human rights as the foundation to data justice. That communities should determine the purpose and problems for which data is needed. That technologies need to be assessed before they're actually brought to market. And that data should be governed by communities that are represented and affected by data. And when they determine that it's held when it's safe, to be held as commons by them. And finally, that we need public data infrastructures and capacity support to enable data sovereignty and collective governance. All right, last slide. Okay, so right now with BIBA and with many other people here in the room, we're starting to do research on these kinds of questions so that we can actually think more complexly about this new field that's taking over and transforming our food systems. We're asking, what are the effects of data collection and digitalization on smallholder farmers, fisher folk, indigenous peoples, and food chain workers? What technologies are inappropriate for food sovereignty and agroecology? And what technologies are useful and appropriate, like the app developed by the Seed Savers Network? And finally, what kind of governance structures do we need to enable food sovereignty and agroecology? Can we develop collective data governance based on human rights? Can we decrease these information inequalities? And can we enforce the ability to enforce privacy rights and respond when rights are violated? And these kinds of questions we're inviting you to join with us in starting to think about and document in order to build our capacity collectively to engage in this, which is a global issue that Kenya, again, is at the forefront of leading the world on. So thank you very much.
I'm going to have my panelists come on board. Venta, Dominic, and Julia Kamau, if you could, so that we don't sit between lunch and this thing doesn't sit between the people and the lunch. But the questions have come in. For those of you who looked through that big ball of glass and gave their data, it was for 3,000 shillings or 7,000 shillings. How much? 7,000. Did you get all of it? And there were a lot of young men, and I think what I saw in their faces was desperation to be able to sell even your own data. And what is happening is that where we are going, and especially the last part that Matt has talked about, where they take your ngwashe, they take your beans, and they sequence it through DNA. They're able to get a lot of information, and they know what sequence will add iron into your food, will add maybe some kind of something to heal you. And that is going. And so the issue of who controls your data, what they do with the data is very critical. Even as you sleep tonight and you're there at midnight and you're looking at your digital thing, you know somebody else is trying to see what else they can sell you. And that is very critical. It's happening in agriculture, and we need to begin to take steps to prevent this. Dominic, if you can come on board. So we have had a cancellation because Dr. Ombalo from the Ministry of Agriculture has been caught up in a flight from Mombasa and couldn't make it in time. But we are going to have just a reaction of some of the things that are going on with the civil society in terms of seed and seed governance. Sorry. Also, Robert Musyoki is not coming. Something else came up. So it's going to be a very short panel. And here comes Dominic. And we are going to talk about the spiritual connection of seed and genetic resources. According to the Constitution, Article 11.3b says this is our joint inheritance. And therefore, Parliament must protect it and treat it as our own resources. So this panel will talk about the spiritual, cultural connection of seeds, as well as other issues to do with governance. Are we going to see talk of farmers being put in prison for using their seeds the way they should be doing it? And so let me give this chance to 2 minutes only of each of the group, of each of the participants in the panel to introduce themselves, and then also prepare some examples, some questions from their reactions. Madam Anne?
Thank you very much, Dr. Maidie. My name is Anne Maina. I'm the National Coordinator of the Biodiversity and Biosafety Association of Kenya, and we have been leading in organizing this. I think I have received the apology from Dr. Ombalo, is Mr. Flood from Mombasa, but I'll share a bit on what he was going to present. Thank you.
afternoon. My name is Venta Mongera. I work with Africa Biodiversity Network. I'm responsible for communication and advocacy. We are in about 20 countries in Africa. Most of the partners here who are part of this team that was planning for this event are partners of ABN, and also we are part of the steering committee that planned the event. Thank you.
So, good morning, Dominic Kimani, Advocacy Officer from Six Areas Network, and we are happy to be this forum as an organization to promote agrobiodiversity conservation by training farmers how to save their own seeds. And I know we are going to embark on some of the issues. Thank you.
Thank you. If you look at the program, Dr. Mbalo was going to speak about the policy and law in Kenya, in the Kenya seed sector. Oh, sorry. And
So there was informal and with the provision of what we call quality declared seeds. Uganda and Tanzania, you get these quality declared seeds among several villages or they can be shared among several villages, like 5 or 6, and those are the provisions that are suggested. But
Thank you. I think I've said that it's formal in the new suggestions, formal seed system, informal, and farmer managed seed systems. Thank you.
You know, indigenous seeds are cultural. We own them. We own them from our ancestors, our grandfathers, and even the seeds themselves have their own ancestors. And that cultural connection in what we do, how we use them, is very spiritual and religious. And maybe Mentor, you can talk about that. And I also want the audience to prepare quick questions because you're trying to save time, but prepare quick questions so that we go to the panel.
Okay, thanks so much. At Africa Biodiversity Network, we support the communities, or rather we accompany the communities to continue doing that which they like doing the best. Part of it is conserving and saving their indigenous seeds, because they believe that is what that is so personal to them, and it has different meanings to them. And besides other factors, like they say the seeds are nutritious, they are resistant to pests and diseases, they can grow even when the rains are not enough. At least now they are able to have some harvest. So besides that, they have so much attachment to their indigenous seeds because they have other cultural rights that they use the seed, the indigenous seed, in performing. For example, when women have given birth, there are specific kind of scenes that they need to, or rather the specific food that they need to eat that is made from those indigenous seed. And that gives them a healthy, restores their health after now giving birth, and also it helps them to have nutritious food that is now important for the newborn child and such. There are scenes also, those indigenous scenes, there are some communities in Africa that have different meanings, rather they perform different rites using those scenes. For example, when naming a child, whether a girl or a boy, they use specific scenes to conduct such rites. During initiation or rite of passage for boys, what they do also, they have specific scenes that is not indigenous scenes that they use to perform such rites. During marriages, the same, weddings. So these indigenous scenes, they have a particular attachment that the communities have, and that cannot be interchanged with a hybrid or any foreign seed because it's not part of their culture. So there's that cultural connotation in the sense that the indigenous seed, they have specific need and they speak to a specific cultural aspect that African communities have special attachment for, and they wouldn't want it to be diluted by having a mix of foreign or since that they don't know their origin or whose DNA has been altered. Thank you.
Wonderful. And before Dominic speaks, the big question is, which of these companies is going to provide seeds? What kind of governance issues, what kind of regulations are coming in when you're dealing with age-old food that you eat? I don't know what this is. Arrowroot, the wild carrot, whatever it is, but I'm not yet convinced that it's a company that is coming into this and having challenges right now on seeds. Dominic.
Yeah, I think just to pick on what Anne and also Venta talked about, I think in terms of the situation that we are in as a country, there are some challenges in terms of our seed laws. In that, as Anne said, they are so much skewed towards the commercial seeds and to engage in seed business in Kenya, starting from seed registration all the way to variety release, and then we have issue to do with having varieties added onto what we call the national variety list that permits the seeds that can be traded in Kenya. And it happens that most of the seeds that we have from the farmers managed seed system, they are not part of what is recognized by the government in the national variety list. If you go to the website of KEFIS, you're able to get the national variety list. I was surprised sometimes back. I only found one pumpkin in the national variety list. How many pumpkins do we know? So it means the minute you're talking about, they are not recognized as seeds and you cannot trade them, yet we grow and eat them. When you talk about even local maize, most of what is there is the white maize. What happens to the other multicolored maize? They are not in the national variety list. And that shows that a lot of diversity that is in the farmers managed seed system is not recognized and cannot be traded legally in Kenya. But at the same time, despite our constitution having very good provisions for recognition of indigenous seeds, and we also had an enactment of the Seed and Plant Varieties Act back in 2015 there that created plant genetic resources to safeguard and protect the utilization and ownership of the indigenous seeds. We don't have a very elaborate system. How do we document local varieties? For the commercial seeds, we have the national variety list that is publicly available. For the farmers' variety, what do we have and how are they protected? For them to be exempted in terms of having to go through the vigorous regulation, for them to be allowed to be traded in Kenya. And the funniest thing is that I struggle with most of the time is that in our seed laws, the definition of the sale also encompasses aspect of sharing, barter, and exchange. And my struggle has been, do we have any seed company that will be interested to share seeds or to exchange seeds? These are some of the issues that if we, as a country, we need to address. Then exemption of farmers' varieties from what we have, they need to come into place so that we ensure that what farmers they are doing, because it's a cultural practice, is safeguarded and can be passed from one generation to another. So in one side, we have a very favorable law in terms of recognition of indigenous seeds, and it provides that it needs to be protected, but when it comes to use, then there are some barriers. Thank you.
Dominic, for that sharing. I think from Venta and what she said, a new wife be given some seeds. It's a very symbolic thing. But that exchange, even between cultures, between villages, is something that is not in the law and want the law changed. So maybe, Dominic, before we go to Matt, and I'm looking for your questions, can you talk about the app that you have developed, yet you cannot use it yet?
So yeah, we have digitized the seed exchange, and the approach is that you can just go online in your seed in the Google Play or the App Store, look for seed exchange app, and you're able to get, based on the configuration there, a nursery. For now, we are starting with seedlings, but we are hoping as we go, we're also going to integrate other aspects of seeds. But as you are saying, based on what our constitution provides, it's not illegal for anyone to share and exchange seeds. But the other laws provides that that is a bit minimum. Yeah.
The big question is, when you exchange seeds, like what I have here, you're going to be spreading diseases across the country. And we still need to be able to feed and clothe our people from the produce that we make. So how do you deal with sharing these, yet you need to obey another law, which is a governance issue, that says, don't do it?
Yeah, and the first question also to you is, the seed that you are holding, where did it come from? Is a process that has been done by farmers. They are the ones that domesticated these crops that you are talking about for thousands of years. So selections has been there. Farmers have got traditional knowledge, and the assumption that farmers, they don't know a good seed is a lie. Nobody will ever take a seed that is inferior and go and plant. If you're talking about maize, they had a process of selecting the best maize in the farm. How it is yielding, the size of the cob, the number of the cobs. That is traditional knowledge that is also supported by science. So the assumption that traditional knowledge is inferior, and having that negative narrative that the materials that farmers are having, they are not of good quality. I believe that their communities know this is a good seed and this is a bad seed. Of course, there are some elements that even in the business, that they do their dubious means in terms of how they do their things, but that doesn't reflect the reality in terms of what is in the communities. Yeah.
Hands. I have to kiss this one. I want to see a few questions that come to our audience. Okay, 3 questions. And before we do that, the whole idea of data control. How important is it that we look at data of farmers and the targeting that is going on with all these apps? Kenya has the largest number of apps in agriculture. And I think you're not aware. You only became aware when we started talking about the globe thing that was looking. But farmers have been targeted, and maybe a final word from Matt in that area before we take the questions. And Nancy, you can come here. Oh, it works. Matt, just hang on, Nancy.
All right. Well, I think that actually it all gets down to what Dominic just said, which is that we see this narrative that we need more data on farmers, on their seeds, and that devalues farmers' knowledge, that farmers already have knowledge. And so this idea that, yes, it's important that we share information, just like it's important that we share seed, but the question of who is actually collecting it, who is actually controlling it, and what knowledge is it actually valuing is the core question. So when we're talking about seeds and when we're talking about data, it's the same sets of questions, actually. And it's about actually valuing farmers' knowledge, and it's about farmers determining the problems for which they actually need solutions. And so putting it back in the hands and the control of those who are producing and saving seed, and that indigenous and local seed.
So very quickly, I have Nancy Wangombe, who will speak on behalf of Wanjiko. Wanjiko has become Nancy Wangombe.
And allow me to approach. Good afternoon. Habari zenyu wa Kenya. I am excited to be in this forum for a number of reasons. One, I am a farmer. Two, I am a seed bank by myself. I have quite a number of seeds in a preserve. But I want to raise a few issues. One is that Africans are struggling with self-esteem. Less than 2 months ago, I could not walk because I had problems with my joints and I had lost a lot of calcium. In the stands, as you walk around, you will see muere. I drank uji ya muere, and in less than 5 days, I could walk again. I am 33 years old, and my demand for food is very high. For many days, I thought I was sick. Kumbe tu ni chakula ya GMO na ingine haishibishi mtu. We have been blessed by God with wonderful biodiversity, vitu ambazo ni healthy, powerful, superior kwa dunia. Lakini hatujui na hatujiamini. I don't need the law to be adjusted. I am operating vile nataka with my seeds and my farm. The law will catch up. The president and the rest of the people need to understand our knowledge. Sisi ndio tutawafunza. It is us who know which seed grows after miezi ngapi. So I want to encourage the farmers in the room and those that I'm seeing that are doing medicine ama nursing. The answer is in our foods before it is in a tablet. And your grandmother knows. So I want to encourage us to move with confidence, and then we will move to adjust the laws from a place of knowledge. I am inviting all of you to search Nancy Wangome on YouTube and get my contact. And we will begin to develop a bank of knowledge of our own. Because the knowledge is there, meaty, herbs, chakula, which is very powerful. I don't have the time, but allow me 2 minutes to tell you another story. Many people have been diagnosed with conditions kama bipolar, sijui ako na stress, mood swings. Mimi na extract avocado oil. Kaa uko na mood swing hapa ukikunywa avocado oil milliliter 20, unaacha kuwa na mood swings. I have done it practically. You see the hair I have, you see this hair? Many women in the room, if you're wearing your afro, clap for you. Those who are not, we are waiting for you guys. This hair grew in less than 2 years. Nilitumia aloe vera, mogwa nogo, and avocado oil. No product in the market today, even in the Western world. Nimepatia watu this product in Lavington. People who buy products for 60,000 from London, and it could not match up. My avocado oil was much more powerful. That lady had come from Birmingham shule, anakuja anaringa eti nimekuwa nikitengeneza nywele na mafuta zao. When aliona nywele yangu, alifunika yake akaniambia nisaidie na hiyo yako. Unaona hiyo yako? Nisaidie na hiyo. So we have powerful things zina work. Sasa self-esteem inakosa kwa nini? Just believe in yourself. Do what you're doing. Unite with the next person. Before wakubali tuziuze, we share. We share. I will give you personally. Take my number. I will give you seeds. I am not going to sell to you. I'm not waiting for the law to come in place. I will give you because there are many.
Thank you, Nancy.
May I give my number? I'm serious about this bank of knowledge. Please. 07, those who want to take, I will say it once, and you can talk to me after this. 0714464183. Lakini ukigoogle Nancy Wangome, you will see a lot of information there. So,
thank you so much.
0714464183. We train our farmers to believe in themselves.
So the last 2 questions.
Yeah, thank you very much for giving me this chance. Oh, I need to stand. Okay, my name's Nama Nyabinda. I'm working with Practical Action in the REG region. But I'm so much happy to be here. I was going around the booths and I've seen what farmers are displaying. But there is one critical thing that I've realized. There are much happening in our farms with farmers, small-scale farmers, but they are not captured outside here. So my question is going to, I want to put Anne in the hot soup a little bit because he presented the case of somebody on the policy, laws, and governance about the seeds. The three categories, or four categories she talked about, formal, informal, farmer-managed seed systems. I just want to find out, is there a clear cut on the policy governing the categories so that the farmers can be left alone to learn to handle their seeds peacefully? When I was going through the booths, I realized a seed like thorn melon, you cannot get it in the agrovet. Some pumpkins you cannot get in the agrovet. Now, why is it that we are putting so stringent policies on the seeds? Question number 2 is, where is the leverage point for the small-scale farmers handling these seeds, especially different line of cultivars of jute mallow, cowpeas, black nightshade, spider plant, all that? We need to come up with those ones. Thank you.
Thank you. There was one last question.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Doreen. Haki Nawiri, Africa. We are working on indigenous seeds back in Machakos County with the children of General Mlinge School and some women around the school. Okay. My question is, we are concentrating much on indigenous seeds and some culture, but I get the knowledge, go to the village, go to my mother, then we are not looking about the soils. Most of the soils that we are having, they are very sick, and we are planting indigenous foods, but the outcome is not very indigenous because of the inorganic fertilizers the farmers have been using for a long period of time. So my question is, what are the measures you guys are putting in place so that we can conserve the soil, we get that soil that will give us the indigenous outcome? Thank you.
Any last final question? Okay, Madam Sarah Lembo, Dr. Lembo.
Thank you very much for all the discussions and the valuable information that you have been giving to us. My name, of course, has been given to you, and the cluster that you have in the African Seed and Biotechnology Program on farm-managed seeds is actually a program that I pushed into the Ecological Organic Agriculture Initiative, following the decision of the heads of states and government that matters regarding seeds in ecology or agriculture should be addressed. And that is why we have that cluster in there. We have a meeting coming up next month, in Mombasa at the General Assembly. And some of these discussions that we have been exposed to here are really very, very relevant to what we have suffered in getting that cluster on board. I want to ask our colleague from GIZ on issues of digitalization. And that question has always come across whenever you have those meetings, that this digital information that we are providing, especially our farmers, I don't know whether to, I don't want to describe them with the word timidity, but if I go to a farm and I need certain information, a farmer may not disclose that information to me, but to you, that you are right, will give it to you. How do we get this mental attitude to get the farmers to realize that when we get that information, that when they give it to these foreigners who go, as you have said, and we are afraid, in fact, the knowledge management system in the UAI is funded by GIZ, for which we really appreciate. And so we have that dilemma, that the farmers sometimes cannot disclose that information when we go as local people. And yet this digitalization, at the same time, does not fit into what you describe in the corner of IPR, intellectual property rights, because it's at that level that we
So thank you, thank you so much.
No, I'm not finished. Yeah, beyond that, I would like to know the issues of regulatory bodies. Because again, regulatory bodies are confined to what you described in the UPOP system. So when you go into the farm managed disease systems, as you have said, the formal, the informal, and the farm managed disease, they don't have the kind of information that they can use to regulate those seeds. So where do we go? And in the KCOA, which you have under the agroecology, how do we add this element there in regards to seeds? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lembo. I think she deserves a lot of clapping because she has asked the most pertinent questions. And I think as we go on, it's a lot of food for thought. We regret that Dr. David Ombalo was not here to answer, and also the car person, something happened to his car. But the questions that you've asked, we are beginning to see a light at the end of the tunnel, because slowly as we continue on, and from the earlier session, you heard that some counties are beginning to act an agroecology policy, and to support those policies, we need farmer managed seed systems to also begin to come in. At the national level, we are beginning to have that conversation even as they do review of the Seed Policy Act. And as soon as you start mentioning of indigenous seeds, like the Ndoma and all the others that we mentioned earlier, we need the support, both from legislation, from the science. I'm glad Caro is here, big way, and they're supporting, and I think Dr. Wasike is one of the biggest champions that I've seen for indigenous food. So we put our ideas together, we let farmers begin to work with researchers, but we also change the law, and in fact, even the area of seed banks that are held by farmers, either individually like Nancy or communally, like in Seed Savers, need to be hinged to the law. But as we finish, and I'm guaranteeing that we'll finish in the next 7 minutes, I want each of the panelists to give their parting shot.
Thank you, and very good discussions that we are having. Dr. Lembo has talked about the great work that she has continued to do even after leaving the Africa Union, establishment of the Farmer Managed Seed System cluster. But as she says, we need more work being done by our regulatory bodies. It's a bit sad that Dr. Ombalo was not able to join us, but we wanted to hear the current, or rather the draft review that they are looking at. I had the privilege to sit with him in a meeting we had about 3 weeks ago, and that's what he shared, some of the proposals they want in changing our current Seed Act to have those three, or rather almost 4 categories: the formal, the informal, and the farmer managed seed system. And also the farmer managed seed system has the QDS, the quality declared seed. But he mentioned that there's opportunity for input into this proposal through public participation. He even opened and told us that if you have an opportunity, a meeting you'd like to call the Department of Policy and the Minister of Agriculture to share and use it as a public participation avenue, it is possible. We had hoped he would be here, but unfortunately he had an issue with his flight from Mombasa. And so I think it's important that as we live here, we prepare our issues and are ready to share these, some of our recommendations. We can share the draft policy review that he has spoken about, they have made, so that we can share and give input so that we ensure our issues get there. We also had a comment from Doreen from Hakinawiri, who was talking about our sick soils and the use of inorganic fertilizer. And of course, this morning we had the discussion on the highly hazardous pesticide and the impact it's having on our soils. And that is why we are promoting agroecology, a transition to agroecology to reduce this dependence, because typically a farmer it will take almost over 2 years to move from in the agroecology transition. The farmer cannot afford not to have production in that period. And that's why you call for transition in a slow process so that they are able to ensure they're producing. You cannot compare a farmer here in Kenya with a farmer maybe in Europe who gets subsidies, and so they need support, and that's why you're calling on transition, and it has a lot of components in there. We're looking at the issues of seed, the issue of inputs, the issue of co-creation and all that. Naman put a question directly to me on the issue of can farmers be left alone to handle their seeds? I think that's a very hard question, because part of the reason why we're having a review of our current seed laws is that even the regulators like KEFIS feel that it's important that they ensure the sanitary and phytosanitary standards are kept. And so I think that's a discussion, a debate we can have, because we've heard also from the farmers, sometimes they don't want to reveal what they have, because once you reveal, you expose it. But it's a catch-22 situation. Thank you. I think my colleagues can support, can add to.
Okay, thank you so much for the question, Dr. Lembo. I think, one of the big problems, of course, is that law is always catching up with technology. That we have in law is there's this big distinction between personal and non-personal data. And this non-personal data is basically everything that is not our name, our address, and is not directly linked to us, which is almost everything that's on the farm. And the idea is that, that has been promoted is that this should be open. Anybody should be able to access it. And that idea of just free sharing of information, that I go to a farm and take that information, model of abstraction that has continued over and over and over again. And so when we're thinking about this new digital technologies, I recently wrote something and I said, I can think about the Microsoft as this sort of Dutch East India company. They're doing similar kinds of things, collecting lots of data and using it and being used and sold back. And also to challenge, I think, one of the other things that you brought out, which I've written about, which is this ideology of innovation, that innovate through science, but instead that we have to think about local knowledge as something that we need to value, and itself is a source of powerful innovation that can be leveraged for change, sustainability, and for resilient livelihoods.
Okay, thanks so much. What I'll say is that technology is here, and communities and farmers to know their rights, to know how to use the technology. Are we formulating or are we participating in creating or developing, updating policies that are there, so that now when we are looking at the cyber security, we are looking at data protection, the rights of the communities are also factored in, so that now the benefits that are found in the knowledge that you share, or rather you collect from the farmers, and what you use that knowledge for. If it's for sale, what percentage is going to the communities? I think it's the integrity of research itself to consider the holders of the indigenous knowledge to see how they can be compensated. Because now we are talking about seed. Seed, it's about people's culture, is their unique identity. We can't afford to tell people, we are talking about ensuring that there's food security. Now, you stop using this or dressing this culture or the clothes that identify your culture, so that now you can wear these other clothes that we think it's beautiful or new. It's about embracing people's culture. Seed is part of people's culture. And then if it's about food security, what problems are these communities talking about that need to be addressed? Is it about seed, or it's other people whose interest is personal that think that it is the seed that is the problem? So we need to be very clear and honest in terms of, if it's about food security, we walk the journey with the farmers. Let the farmers say what the problem is. If it's about the seed, they can sufficiently feed them and they can share. Why should we regulate them? Why should we tie their hands so that now they don't share that which they think is the solution to their problem? And for also government to see how best to develop or partner with companies that are creating or have the business model of technology to have products in terms of smartphones or any gadget that the farmers are able to access the digital knowledge that is available on different apps for them now to also know how they can contribute in the discussions about the information about their lives, that is now their seed, so that now they can contribute constructively and in a way that will make the decision makers, the policy makers, to consider the opinion of the farmers who are the knowledge holders. There is no decision about the farmers without them, and no one can speak on their behalf if they are not invited at the table. So it's important to invite the communities, the farmers, to give their opinion and to say what works for them, what doesn't work for them, and in that way, the part of sharing the benefit, contributing to diversity in terms of solving the issues that are affecting the communities and ensuring food security are sustainably addressed.
Thank you so much, Venta. The issue of participation is coming out very clearly, that there is no say anything about me without me. So you make that decision, but let's hear from Dominic.
Yes, I think I usually say that sometimes most of the stakeholders, the researchers, all of us who are in Kenya live in denial sometimes. Because if you are talking about the reality on the ground, mambo pale kwa ground ni tofauti. Leo hii tukiulizana maswali hata tuende huko nje tuulizane maswali in terms of where did farmer X get bean seed from their fellow farmers or from open air market pale sokoni. Go to Irish potatoes. Where do they get them? If you ask them certified seed, they don't even know what about. Wanaenda sokoni wanachukua pale. Tuangalie about local vegetables. Where do they get them? Either from their neighbors, they save their own seeds, or they go to the open air markets. If you remove maize and exotic vegetables from the equation, you realize that most of the rest are coming from you, the farmers that are seated here. You do a very major job in terms of supplying seeds to the country. And this is the reality that all the stakeholders need to know, in that the seeds that we grow, if you check even from the government documents, certified seed for potatoes, the last time I checked it was 4%, 96% coming from farmers. So, in the real sense, we are living in denial. That is point number one. So, if they are about to arrest people, then I think in a way or another, all of us are supposed to be in jail, because we are saving seeds, we're exchanging seeds, and then it means the law is not applicable. It's like telling us that we should not be sleeping in our houses. Can that law be implemented? So I don't think there is any problem, because the application or applicability of the law, based on how our agricultural sector is organized, especially having the small-scale farmers, seed sharing, exchange, or all that is the common practice, and is not going to die. There are some conversations that we need to formalize the seed sector. Okay, it's a good conversation. It will help a bit in terms of other issues to do with maybe seed business. But at the same time, we need to recognize that we never formalize what farmers are doing. It will always remain how it is. The best thing we can do is to recognize that they exist and support farmers by training. Let farmers be trained. How can they be able to have good seeds? And that is the reality. Farmer saving seeds is not going. Another thing that I want to share is on the discussions around plant breeders' rights and farmers' rights. We need to be very clear, all of us, and even all the stakeholders, in terms of which is superior. Because what is provided and protected a lot is the plant breeders' rights. Who protects farmers' rights? Because today, if you go and check what is in the national variety list, and you save those seeds, you're supposed to pay plant breeders royalties. It's like paying rent for using the seed. Who pays you when they use your seed to improve and do enhancement? And at the end of the day, own the seeds, and they patent them. So we are losing a lot of biodiversity through biopiracy, because the law is not protecting farmers to own and have use of their seeds. So we need to enhance more in terms of farmers' rights ensures, for instance, if today what is in the national variety list is only one pumpkin, the rest that we have in the country need to be protected, and nobody should be able to register them without providing a proof that we not just take and clean what existed in the communities. The other aspect that I wanted to speak on is in terms of what we are talking about, the value chains, which is good. I understand that farmers need to make money, we need to be more organized, but at the end of the day, if the formalization or the development of the value chain, like what Dr. Mange talked about, is to have data, to know where farmer you bought the seeds. Are you saving the seeds for a certain breeder? Because how the laws are right now, if you read the AFA Act, you read the Crops Act, and Seed and Plant Varieties Act, you are supposed to pay royalties, and it's supposed to be collected by the county governments that you elect. And I know Anne talked about the inspectors. So they'll be asking you, and I just go and check in the law, where did you get the seeds for this crop that you are growing? If you say that is from a certain company, there is a provision in the law of paying the farm gate price for the value. For instance, if you sell potatoes for variety X coming from a certain research institution, you are supposed to pay between 5 to 10% of the value. If you make 100, between 5 to 10,000 is supposed to go to the owner of that particular variety. And we need to challenge so that farmers, what you are doing, nobody takes advantage in terms of what you have, and need to be safeguarded because the saving is part of our culture. No farmer is competing with seed company to sell seeds. What we are doing is to increase diversity, to improve on seed access. We are not interested in terms of competing with the company X. And what we are doing, that is my feeling and my opinion, that need to be remain the same. And somebody who is interested to commercialize and compete with the companies, let them work with KEFIs to pass the certification, but farmers need to be left alone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I would like us to rise up. Please stand. I want us to really appreciate Dr. Mainge and this panel here of Dr. Matthew Canfield, Anne Maina, Venta Bongera, and Daniel Wanjama. Hebu tuwapigie makofi mazuri kabisa. I appreciate that they have done a very good job of answering and discussing with you. Now, I know our sugar levels are now very low. Sindio? Mnasikia njaa? Wanafunzi mnasikia kitu iko ndani ama hakuna? Hakuna. Okay, now we want us to go for lunch, and that lunch should be combined with breakfast. Kama huko umekuja hiyo tea break hiyo, now we should use this chance to do that. But before we just do that, there is a photo session outside at the entrance there. I don't know the protocol that will be used for that, but you'll be shown on how we shall do that. So immediately after the photo session, lunch. If you were here yesterday, you know where the lunch was being served. So if you're new to, you just come today, you'll be following those people that have been around. Or if you bump into me, you can find me. So Kayamba Roots, give us one song. Actually, just the DJ, you can do that as we walk outside the hall for a photo session. And remember that we have a cooking competition. Cooking competition that was supposed to happen yesterday, it will happen today at the 10th section. And we are coming back.